Hi, everybody. This is me post-op. I'm not quite sure of my lighting, my positioning, um, but bear with me for this one last time. The first two lessons that I recorded were actually done pre-op. So, in fact, I re-recorded a couple of times. If there are any continuity foibles between the first lesson and the second lesson, if it sounds like I'm referring to something in lesson two, that you didn't think maybe you quite heard in lesson one, I didn't go back and re-record, and it would be a very minor point. So, but they were done early, and now I'm doing this supplemental exercise, an unexpected introduction. So this is an exercise in inclusion, and it found me wanting to say just a word and Daniel Prude in the nature of our class, I think. So if we were meeting, if we were coming together, we would start something with how's it going? A check-in round and how everybody's doing. And we've been through quite a tumultuous time here in the city. And I have no doubt that the discussion would have turned to the Rochester Police Department and the protests and the murder. So I just felt a need to speak to that a little bit. I hope in some ways that we're able to carry that into our video lessons and have these discussions, even if they are not built into my formal lesson. So I just wanted to say that I worked for the city for 33 years. I worked hard, I think, to make the city a better place. So I think a number of us have real personal reactions to this, each in our own way. So I just wanted to kind of make that statement. And this was a supplemental exercise that I would sometimes do and sometimes not do, depending on if I had time. But because we're a bit online, and also because I think a bit of trying to know the nature of how we view ourselves and how we view each other is so important, uh, that I want to insert this into our lesson. So let us proceed. I call it an impact cycle on how we come to know ourselves, how we come to know others. It's not a heavy duty HR lesson. We're still not deep into HR. We will be next time around. So we had introductions, we have inclusiveness, and we have the impact cycle. The impact cycle simply suggests that there is a lifetime a lifetime progression that we go through that is at our core, that forms us, that informs us. We go through a position in life called conditioning. This is kind of fundamental um, behavioral science, which I am not an expert in. Okay, but we go through a period of conditioning. And the question I would ask the class is, what do you think those years are? And the beginning is easy. The beginning is birth. But how long does this period of conditioning, of us getting hardwired into our belief system, our value system, our identity, how long does that take to develop? And there's a lot of variations in opinion. So when I ask the question, I often get, uh, as soon as a kid gets on a school bus, it's done. As soon as the kid leaves the home, leaves the environment of the family, it's done. And that may be. Others will say, well, it goes on for your entire life. It never ends. And that's probably a valid point as well. Most or early teens is another, early teens, um, when the independence really begins to break out, right? So most behavioral scientists, though, put it at around age 8. Put it at around age 8, which is interesting because in some faith traditions, age 7, age 8 was known as the age of reason, when a person is able to really think for themselves. So it's during this time that we get our beliefs, our attitudes, uh, and we put labels on ourselves and on other people. Um, the next step is you come to know yourself and you come to know the other. And you begin because you don't know the other as you know yourself. The self is the ego, not a bad thing, just knowledge of self. Um, the other we begin to put into buckets. I like to say that stereotyping is not in and of itself a bad thing. It happens. We don't understand, we categorize. It happens in all realms, right? So it's if we stop there, and if we don't see the individual behind the stereotype, that you see the circle descend into bias and prejudice, um, that we see certain behaviors, we have certain expectations, we apply those to various groups of people, we put them into the bucket with the people. Okay. And then, we're right. I'm right. I'm right, and I can prove I'm right. And so we begin to reinforce our beliefs. We validate our own beliefs. I'm going to take you through just a brief exercise, uh, a simple exercise to just show you how this works a little bit. So there you are at age 2, sitting on the front step, the conditioning existing, the values, the traditions, the beliefs, the things that you're raised with, the things that others are raised with. And this is silly. This was a fill in the blank. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work without you all sitting there responding to me. But don't speak. How do we respond? What's finish the line? Go ahead. Don't speak unless. Don't talk to. Big boys don't. Children should be seen. Can't teach an old dog. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't talk to strangers. Big boys don't cry. Children should be seen and not heard. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. Hard work never. When I have a class in front of me, when I have a group of employees, a class of students in front of me, everybody knows the first 5. When I get to the hard work never, there's usually a division. I'll get a little hesitation. I'll get a few hard work never hurt anybody. I'll get a few hard work never pays off. And the question is, why? The first five are just part of our culture. They're sayings. If you go to other cultures, and I'm sure some of you may be able to share these, there are other adages, other sayings that people can fill in the blank. Um, when we get to the hard work never, it depends a lot on a couple of things. It depends on your personal life experience, so that which you have beyond the conditioning, beyond the early years. And it also depends, we find, on that it's generational. Okay, so the boomer generation, the traditionalists were kind of the hardcore, hard work never hurt anybody. Get out there and do a decent day's work for a decent day's pay. More so with millennials and Gen Z, we're seeing hard work never pays off. I'm here for now. Once I feel like I've gotten as much as I'm going to get from this employment, I'm going to move on. So the loyalty of person to company, company to person has pretty much evaporated. I can take the same person for that last one and use an example of that life experience. So for those of you from the Rochester area, uh, if I said Eastman Kodak employee 1984, hard work never hurt anybody. Rochester was a company town, a Kodak town. There were athletic leagues, there were social groups, there were pay bonuses, and it was root for Kodak. Now take the same person, 2020, who perhaps has lost pension and retirement benefits, who has seen the Kodak business go down regardless of recent whatever going on. Um, Hard work never pays off. I had a neighbor who literally lost his retirement savings, who had worked for Kodak for many years. So there's that personal experience. This is a brief video. I will leave it for you to watch. There's also going to be a link. What you see, the links here, you can click on them and watch, or you can find them in Blackboard. A link on a link on conditioning. I think this is the 1 minute funny one. Okay, so you see a child actually being conditioned for about a minute. So the stereotype becomes the fixed generalization. We know ourselves. We have the sense of self. And then there's everybody else that we don't know quite as well. So the brain does a quick edit, right? And I said buckets, so I'll stay with buckets. We categorize, we put people in buckets. And as I said, it's natural, it's normal. It's how people market things. You identify certain markets and you go for those markets. So here's the individual and here's the bucket. You can take a look at that chair and say the chair looks safe to sit in until you actually go to sit in it and maybe the back leg is cracked. You can look at the apple and say, apple looks okay to eat until you pick up the apple and your hand embraces mush in the back. The dog, I really don't know what to do with. I don't know what bucket to put this dog in. He looks like an old mangy mutt on a short leash. He may be harmless. He may be not. I'm not sure if I would want to release the leash or not. So if we don't have that individual experience, if we don't sit in the chair, if we don't pick up the apple, if we don't get the sense of the individual, then we can begin to become biased and prejudiced. Okay, so stereotypes can lead to bias and prejudice, can then impact our behavior towards others. And again, a video link. It'll also be on Blackboard. Take a look at it. This is a lesson in stereotyping. It's a Canadian presentation talking about perception of drivers and how we see drivers. Watch the entire thing because he also gets into building trust in the workplace and how easily trust can evaporate in the workplace. It's, I think, maybe a 9-minute video entirely. And here's how we reinforce. Now this is getting old. I should find something new because this is Katrina, which is, my goodness, what are the dates on this? Was Katrina 2005? This is getting old. But for those of us who were around during Katrina, you know, you get up and you're having your morning coffee and you get your news feed and you get that iconic helicopter vantage point above the flood zone, and you see two residents wading through chest-deep water after finding bread and soda at a grocery store. You go a little deeper into an article, you go a few clicks over, and you find that same vantage point, a young man apparently of color, a young man walking through chest-deep floodwater after looting a grocery store. I don't know the truth behind these photos, but the question is, if you had a bias, if you had a prejudice, would this reinforce your thinking? And for most, the answer is yes. You know, I told you that would happen. What did you expect? Right? Because that's the prejudice in it. So if we come through this, how do we break out of it? How do we break out of it in this simple exercise? How do we break out of it in this society, in this culture, in this city at this moment? You know, and the first thing I keep in red because it says rethink our beliefs with a question mark. Because I'm not for a moment suggesting that anyone's beliefs are wrong. I am suggesting that your beliefs are your beliefs. And the things that you hold near and dear and precious to you, other people will hold other things just as nearly, just as dearly, and just as preciously to them. So to re-educate yourself, to look at a broader perspective, consider the individuality, and for goodness sake, use your curiosity. Want to learn. Um, Covey's 7 Habits. You'll hear this a few times during this semester. Covey's 7 Habits of Successful People. Habit 5, seek first to understand. Before you come to judgment, seek first to understand. So be curious, ask questions, and this is pulled off the internet. Be some friends with people who aren't your age, hang out with people whose first language isn't the same as yours, get to know someone who doesn't come from your social class. This is how you see the world, and this is how you grow. And we all better start doing this, right? What we find, oh, sorry, a little misalignment here. What we find in data and research is, and I think this will make some sense. I think you just see the common sense in this. If you have conflict in the workplace, so if you take this lesson, if you take this exercise that I just went through and bring it into the workplace, and if there is conflict in the workplace, what is the cost of conflict? So a lot of distraction from management, the loss of good employees who are just going to walk away, not going to deal with this, decision making, sabotage, lack of motivation, health cost, and the last one, absolutely positively for sure, lost work time, high absenteeism, conflict in the workplace. The benefits, the opposite, of course, teamwork, partnership, communication, efficiency, stress free, can you imagine? And the mutual understanding. That's the last slide in this supplemental presentation. And as I was going through this and talking through this, even though I've done this dozens of times, at this moment, I found it helpful for myself. And I hope you did too. So this is going to be posted tomorrow. So this is Wednesday, uh, the 9th. Totally lost track of time. Tomorrow, a week in advance, you're going to have the PowerPoint Part 1 of the lesson. You're going to have this supplemental exercise. And then, as I hope you discovered last week, come lesson night, there will be other material, other assignments. And when we meet on the 17th, we will discuss what you have had a chance to view in advance. Okay, so thank you all for your patience. I am home, I am up, and I love your student profiles. Um, feel really connected to some of you already. Can't wait to meet you over the next few days. Take care, and I'll see you soon.